Yes, for the 2 o'clock closed session meeting. We have item 3.1, Government Code Section 54954.5B, Conference with Real Property Negotiators, APN number 001-120-28-00, Agency Negotiator Richard Coons, negotiating party Big Valley Properties, under negotiation, price and terms of payment. Are there any public comments for this closed session item? Hearing none, we will go to the next item. Item 3.2, Government Code Section 54954.5C, Conference with Legal Counsel, existing litigation, Gunn versus County of Trinity. This item is being removed from today's agenda and will be placed on a further agenda. And we have subsequent item number 2, move to discuss and or take action to add a closed session discussion regarding anticipated litigation.
Can we just have to read the bottom part that says closed government code section?
Oh, Government Code Section 54954.5C, Conference with Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation, number of cases 1. Are there any public comments for this item? Hearing none, we will move into closed session. We will return at 3 p.m. for our open session public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're fun to watch.
Is this true public? Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah.
Four bedrooms. Fantastic. You can put an outlet on the outside. Really nice station. Yeah.
So if you need somebody, she's good. Okay. I'll see her here in a couple of weeks. I'll ask her something.
Good afternoon, members of the public and Trinity County staff. Thank you for your patience with the scheduling changes today. We will proceed with presentations from Clerk of the Board. Item 1.1, receive an update on wildfires currently burning in Trinity County. I'm not sure the order, but I believe Ed Presley's on the line. Ed, if you're there, you've got the floor.
We have a slight technical issue.
Can you hear me?
Not yet. Almost. Hold on.
You have to speak, John.
Go ahead, please.
No.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and start then. Good afternoon, board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Ed Presley with a fire update with the Office of Emergency Services, Trinity County. Before I get started, I would like to say this fire season is unprecedented, not only in Trinity, but for the whole state of California. We keep all Californians in our mind, but our focus is truly on our county, our home. Fires this year in our county have burned approximately 395,000 acres. The August complex this morning was 332,388 acres, and the red salmon fire is approximately 45,800 acres, and both of these are burning in Trinity County as we speak. That is so far. Our entire county works out to about 2 million acres. So if you do the quick math on that, that's about 20% of our county that has burned this fire year alone. I really wish that was the total number, but the August Complex North Zone fire is still burning in southern Trinity, and the red salmon is still burning north of Denny. Our hope is everyone is being safe and heeding evacuation orders. The Red Cross are our allies in this and have established a number for anyone evacuated to call and get support. That number is 530-276-8034. I'm going to repeat that number once. 530-276-8034. At last count, there was 170 Trinity County residents that have taken them up on their offer. Now, let me get to what just happened over this weekend. This wind event on Sunday, it pushed that August Complex North Zone fire to the west across Ruth Lake, where it spotted across, and it also spotted across Highway 36. The fire crews did what they could with the impending wind event to prepare for it, but they couldn't account for the recorded 3 and 4 mile spot fires. Yesterday, the fire continued spreading to the south and west through Hedenshaw Valley towards Xenia, and this fire isn't done. As of yesterday afternoon, we've lost 82 residential structures and 122 other structures. But that is just ones the inspectors can't even get in there and count right now. This is still an ongoing situation. The fire is still burning. Our environmental health director, Christy, she has more work to do sorting out the damage from this latest wind event alone, much less what was already realized on the ground. The Fire Management Assistance Grant has been requested through CAL FIRE, but it was put on hold on the grounds this is not yet considered a major disaster. I don't really understand that. For us, I think over 300,000 acres burned in our county would be considered a major disaster. I argue more homes have burned this time than in the Helena fire of 2017. The response this morning was with CAL FIRE, where they're going to ask some more questions and then request if Trinity County can submit for an FMAC separately. Well, I just wanted to tell the board that I welcome that opportunity. They give me a chance, they give some other like-minded people a chance to stand up and argue for Trinity County, and that's what we're going to do if it comes to that. A letter was signed by our CAO, and it was sent to Cal OES Director Mark Ghilarducci requesting aid through the California Disaster Assistance Act, and that's also to help with the hazardous debris cleanup, and this was last Thursday when I sent that up. The estimated infrastructure damage to roads, culverts, and bridges alone were over $750,000 last week before this latest push of the fire. At one point, it was estimated about 10,000 trees were either blocking roadways directly or were in the county right-of-ways. Response costs and overtime for county employees were calculated at approximately $75,000 last Friday. Now that's certainly to be increased to over $100,000. The red salmon fire was reawakened by this wind event as well, so I don't want anyone to lose sight of that one. It's still burning pretty good north of Denny, and we're still watching it. It's burning in the wilderness, and hopefully it doesn't get down to Denny because the wind event has actually calmed now, so hopefully it's going to slow down and allow them to get up on that one. And I'm sure everybody was watching the Zog fire, which started north of Idaho and was pushed by the wind to the southwest. And though it's not in Trinity yet, hopefully it doesn't get here, we've recently seen just how rad these fires can be with a little wind driving them. I received an update around noon today and was told that since the winds died down, CAL FIRE should be able to get a line around the Zog fire. So that was good news. But still, we're going to be watching it. We have to remain ever vigilant. Obviously, we're not going to stop arguing for the same treatment as other counties receive. About 80% of Trinity is federally owned, but we will still have our communities to protect and to fight for and to recover from fires just like this once this one is over. It shouldn't matter who's fighting the fire. If county resources are responded, we should be offered the same treatment as other counties. The August Complex North fire is currently causing more destruction in our county. I just received a phone call about 10 minutes before this meeting started that said, and this was from the incident management team, that the fire is on the move again, moving west. So that northern portion that's over 36 to the north is pushing west. The southern portion that was moving towards Xenia yesterday is pushing west. It's not going as fast as what the wind was pushing it over the weekend, but we were told that we could expect more damage this afternoon because the fire is waking back up. In closing, there will be another virtual meeting tonight, just like last weekend at 7:30 p.m. It will be viewable on HHS and OAS Facebook pages. It's going to be simulcast from the incident management team, ICT. They're in Reading, if anybody would like to tune into that. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ed, I appreciate that. Is there anyone else with additional fire updates?
Yeah, like Christie, and we'll also bring Diana from solid waste.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Christy Anderson, Trinity County Environmental Health. So, as Ed had mentioned, there's been some complexities to this fire. Because of the different districts that have been broken up between state and federal response, CAL FIRE generally does the damage assessments, and they did so in their area, the West Zone, which is west of Xenia Lake Mountain Road, and so that starts around the Xenia area and part of Kenton Palm. So the complications came when we didn't have a way to assess the damage for the east zone, or the rest of the north complex. So that's where, you know, I was able to step in and get in there. I have a lot of experience working with CAL FIRE doing damage assessments from the 2017 and 2015 fires. As much as I've been able to, I've been getting on the ground, but there has been a lot of barriers. For instance, fallen trees blocking the roads. I wanted to give an update on Ed's numbers. It's actually 92 residential structures with a total of 209 structures in total so far, and that's as of September 23rd. That was the last time I was able to access and get number counts, and again, blocked trees and active fire areas where we did know residences existed impeded that. Now, the events of Sunday and yesterday, I have been told by fire personnel there has been many more structures damaged or destroyed, and I have I've only seen 2 structures that weren't completely destroyed. This fire has been very hot, very devastating, moved very quickly. The entire community of Three Forks, Berry Creek, 2SO, Long Ridge, Hoagland area, Kenton Palm. There's a little bit of structures that survived in the main Kenton Palm area. And as I'm being briefed, it's not looking good in the Ruth area or Henshaw. So when we have more updates for that, I am glad to get those out to you as quick as possible. Those numbers really count when it comes to response and money that helps us support that response. This has been very complicated. It's about 2.5 hours from north to south, the area that we're looking at the structures that have been destroyed. As Ed had mentioned, it's many acres and large ranches. A lot of large, beautiful ranches have been burned. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer anything I can. This is a big one. And my part in this is I'm really trying to get those numbers as well for the recovery. We're hoping to get the same kind of aid we had in other fires like the 2017 Helena and the 2015 lightning fires to aid in the hazardous waste removal and debris cleanup of the affected areas. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Christy, for the update. So, if I understood you correctly, CAL FIRE is only doing part of the count on the whole complex, unlike in 17 when you received that really very thorough book of all the properties that were damaged. Are you getting any of that?
So CAL FIRE did provide us with information. I think total, we had about 49 of those structures were from the CAL FIRE assessments.
Okay.
It's been a district federal versus district state ran response.
All right, that's what I want to know. Well, thank you for your work.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes, sir. Christie, if you could also speak to and with Diane Rader regarding Cal Recycle and what the process is, and we have to let them on people's property so that they can fill out the form, and it's to the advantage. We're not looking for illegal activity or anything. We're just looking to get the property back up to a certain standard or over to a certain standard. And I know you'll be working with Diane Rader on that. Right, Diane, or am I wrong? Okay.
correct.
Okay, so both of you work together. Can you both talk to that issue together, or would you prefer it separately?
I can start it out kind of how, so basically I did red tag as many properties as I could with information about handling debris in hopes that we would get the funding for the cleanup process. It does start with hazardous waste removal, Department of Toxic Substances Control, and then the second phase would be the removal of the rest of the debris with Cal Recycle. Oftentimes, Diane and I have had to be creative in the fire cleanup response and figure out where and how and where to store things, and also an alternative outside of the state's cleanup program. The state's cleanup program, if we are allowed to do so, it would cover anybody that didn't have insurance 100% for that cleanup. I do want to stress again, we are not counting greenhouses in those structure counts. Again, we're not looking at illegal activity or legal activity or anything like that. That was not the concern. The concern was dwellings and large structures outside of greenhouses, because in the past that did not count towards the structure count. Diane, did you want to mention anything? Okay.
Good afternoon, Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. Without having really direct information on what kind of losses there are in debris, then it's more of a reminder that the transfer sites themselves can't just take random burn debris. So it's going to have to be on a case-by-case basis, where Christy and I will try and work out some sort of a system for what can go to transfer sites so it's easier for disposal of. But it's tricky because a lot of it does end up being hazardous just because of the nature of the debris. And anything?
Yeah, so down there's quite a bit of mileage between a lot of those parcels and the transfer stations, and so, or the transfer sites, and so this also makes it complicated. So, and we'll probably have to figure out a way, because a lot of them out there don't accept metals or do on a limited basis.
I'm working on Hayfork maybe being able to, but we're going to have to find a way to clear space to do that.
So metals would probably be the extent of the county's acceptance of the
Okay,
waste.
I have two questions here. If people do not take advantage of Cal Recycle and what you're bringing forward, they are responsible for removing hazardous waste from their property or cleaning up their property?
That is correct, and it will have to meet a certain standard.
Right, okay, and it's to their advantage to hopefully work with us. Now, Kenton Palm and Xenia, which transfer terminal do they use? I hate to bring this up, Diane. I'm asking this because I know they don't.
At the moment, I don't have.
Okay.
I think I'm running out of transfer sites in that area.
I'm sorry, I just like to make life tough for you. They don't,
It's
they
gonna
don't pay the
default.
$100 fee either, so they don't have, they really don't have access
They still have access, we'd
to the
have
Humboldt
to,
side usually. They can pay the tipping fee and use ours, I agree.
yes.
But there is a long-term ongoing process of not having a transfer terminal there. And for
It's
for
probably
adequate
going to
reason.
end up at our larger transfer site at
Yeah, okay.
Hayford.
So keep that in mind, Christie, when you start saying you have to take this to the transfer site or Cal Recycle's going to or something like that.
So, yeah, the burn debris is a complicated issue. We ended up with waivers that allowed us to dispose of in Anderson in the past. I don't know where they'll route us to this time or where they'll be routed to. It could be closer to go somewhere on the coast, although I'm not sure that there's a landfill that would accept the waste. Anderson still might be the closest option.
And Hayfork does have a local person that does solid waste disposal or whatever, if they can help out, I'm sure they'd love to.
Again, it still has to meet certain criteria,
Right.
and they can't drag around the ash all around town, spreading it to the neighbors.
Okay,
So it's still, it's a complicated issue.
thank you.
Supervisor Morris?
You might have mentioned this a few minutes ago, but those letters that go out to the property owner, if I recall, have like a 30-day, maybe less, to return those back to your offices so Cal Recycle can come in. Do I remember that correctly?
That's after the state accepts, grants us the program, then it would be the right of entry, and we would be asking permission
Right,
to remove that waste.
but we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Again, we're still hoping to get the funding, so that's what we're waiting on.
Okay, thank you.
And it's still burning.
Right, well, of course,
It's
that's true, right.
It's ridiculous.
I'm thinking of the
I
river
agree.
footprint of the fire.
Thank you.
So, Richard,
Supervisor Cruz?
Oh.
Apologize.
I have a quick follow-up. Would it be prudent that we bring a letter from the board on Tuesday, you know, to the governor's office or to Cal OES about this designation?
Yes,
So we don't-
I don't want to steal Liz's thunder, but I think she was going to ask the board to bring something forward because we have been working with Huffman's office very closely and they've been extremely helpful, but anything we
It's the
can
state
get.
that we're having an issue with.
Yes, it's the state, and then that'll take us to the next level. Actually, through the FMAG is the issue we're having with right now, but also the state designation through the governor's office, so that
And
would
we
be
can't
wonderful.
do any of this cleanup without the state designation, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
So, okay. Sorry, Liz, for reading each other's minds.
Are there any additional questions?
Yes, please.
Supervisor Groves, please.
So you mentioned the west and the north. Do you have any information on damage done in the south complex in Trinity?
So where the south divides with the north, I'm not familiar with that area. I don't know if that's Forest Service land down there.
Now, there are some, that would be like Island Mountain east. And there are homes in,
So Island Mountain is still,
It's west.
it's west, on that west corner.
right, it's on the west corner, but their east is still the south complex, right on the Mendocino line.
So what we're calling, I think what you're referring to is the, I brought a map, hold on.
This Rick, it hasn't moved to non-mount yet.
I understand that, Rick, but I was pointing that out is to be part of the south complex. There is quite a bit in Trinity.
It's the dividing line.
Where's the county line?
This one. Here's the county line.
So you have properties out in this,
There's one large ranch right through here.
right?
And
But there's other properties out in.
This part is still, this is part of the north so you're talking about south of that. I haven't been told that there's anything south of that.
So here you have the dividing line, this is the Trinity County line. You have all this, so this whole section and all this in here.
So this is actually part of, this little chunk. I think it's part of
It's part of
Fire.
It's part of the west.
It's part of the west.
Okay.
You're calling that area, yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Supervisor Groves, do you have any additional
I
questions?
do not, thank you.
Thank you, Christie. Thank you, Dan. Liz, are you available?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi, Chair and members of the board, thank you. Liz Hamilton, Health and Human Services and Office of Emergency Services Director. Thank you to Ed and Christy and Diane for your report out. And I want to say to our community members, our thoughts are with you as you're going through this trying time in our South County, and of course our appreciations to all fire personnel, first responder, our Sheriff's Department, Road Department, and CHP for all their continued efforts. Great appreciation and thanks. I wanted to let the board know, in addition to what's been reported out, is that we have established through our EOC, we've established a long-term recovery team. And our Deputy Director, Mike Catoni, will be leading that mission. And we're kind of assembling all of the features of our team, in the days coming along, so that once we have the go-ahead to bring in the members that you're talking about, Cal OES and Cal Recycle, that we're ready for that. And so it's a great it's a great effort to do, and we'll use the model that we developed with Helena. And we find that, of course, specific to the community where the need is. But rest assured that we have made every request to the state in our capacity to do so, to get all those resources in. I have two requests of the board. One, to follow up on the matter from this morning to authorize and sign our declaration. And then also, as Dr. Coons mentioned, writing a letter of support to the governor's office so that we can be assured that we'll get these resources. End of report.
Thank you, Liz. Supervisors, do you have any questions?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, that's all, Liz. We will move on to our subsequent one item. Move to discuss or take action to confirm the existence of a local health emergency due to debris and air quality concerns created by the wildfires, and find that the need to take immediate action came to the attention of the board subsequent to the agenda being posted. The urgency is that the local health emergency will expire prior to our next regular board meeting, and these conditions are expected to continue. Liz, is there anything you'd like to speak to this item about?
Actually, the agenda, I'm sorry, is the second part. Also,
Oh,
the modified.
I apologize.
I apologize.
No, you told me that. So ratify the county's health officer's declaration and confirm the existences of a local health emergency in Trinity County due to debris and air quality concerns created by the wildfires. Liz, would you like to speak to this? I know it's kind of what you already talked about.
I have no additional comments, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Unless there's any comments from the public, I would be looking for a motion.
Motion to approve as presented. We close public.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Judy.
Please poll the board.
We have a motion by Supervisor Finley and a second by Supervisor Morris. Supervisor Morris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Aye.
Supervisor Grove?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye. Next item, public hearing, Board of Supervisors, item 2.1. Introduce, waive the reading of, and extend the urgency ordinance enacted on August 18th of 2020, imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of a new or the transfer of existing commercial cannabis licenses in the Rush Creek opt-out area for 10 months and 15 days. We'll open this up for public. Oh, staff report. Thank you. Director Hunter.
Good afternoon, Kim Hunter, Building and Planning Director. Before I do a brief summary of the item before you, I do want to provide a disclaimer that I am a property owner and a resident in the Rush Creek Estate subdivision. However, I have not signed the petition in favor of the proposed opt-out and have remained objective and neutral on this matter in my professional capacity as planning director.
Thank you for that, Director Hunter.
The item before you today is an extension of an urgency ordinance that was enacted on August 18, 2020 that imposed a temporary moratorium on the issuance of new or transfer of existing commercial cannabis licenses in the Rush Creek opt-out area. And the extension would be for 10 months and 15 days as prescribed by state law. Should the board waive the reading and of this ordinance, then the recommendation is direct the clerk to let the record show that an extension of the urgency ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of new or the transfer of existing commercial cannabis licenses in the Rush Creek opt-out area be approved for that extension of 10 months and 15 days. The urgency ordinance does cover the area of approximately 100 parcels. Some of those parcels, I believe 2 of those parcels are right-of-ways for Caltrans. 100 parcels, that includes Go Away Road, Buttons Road, First Left Road, Bear Creek Road, Bear Canyon Road, and Rush Creek Drive. The critical issues that prompted the request for the opt-out have been identified in the area, which include water quality, water quantity, safety, and traffic. A portion of the proposed opt-out area is located within a critical water overlay district, a CWR overlay zone, which is applied to lands where it has been determined that development may have a detrimental impact on water resources. That area is located at the end of the Bear Creek Road area. It's a portion, but water definitely is a concern in the entire area from the residents. While the planning department accepted a request of opt-out in October of 2019, this included a petition signed by the majority of property owners in the proposed Rush Creek opt-out area. The current cultivation ordinance number 315-843 does not outline a process to add, modify, or remove cultivation opt-out areas. Therefore, because the EIR, the Environmental Impact Report for the Cannabis Cultivation Program, is in process, the approach has been an interim urgency ordinance until the EIR can be certified and the ordinance amended to create a process to add, modify, or remove opt-out areas. That just doesn't exist right now. So, right now we're at the urgency ordinance, and the recommendation is to grant an extension for the 10 months and 15 days, again, as outlined by state law. That's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Kim, what would be the timing to get a permanent restriction on that area put into the ordinance? Would it be done within that 10-month period?
That is the hope, that with the ordinance update that follows the certification of EIR, that we can add that process process into the ordinance with that amendment. But that is the hope, that there is another extension that is available after this time if needed. Hopefully that's not needed and that can be incorporated into the ordinance and approved.
So it's possible it would be late next spring, early next
Correct.
summer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yes, has anything else come to light within the past month, or any changes, or anything you'd like to tell us or express to us? You can answer yes or no.
No,
Okay.
I'm just thinking slowly. No, nothing that comes to mind.
Thank you.
Supervisor Morris? Supervisor Groves, do you have any additional questions?
I do not, thank you.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this?
Sally Barrow, I live on Bear Creek Road. You've heard all this before. I just didn't want to drop the ball this close to the end. Our opt-out petition was submitted to the Planning Department in October 2019. On February 11th, Supervisor Grove requested this urgency ordinance be created by the Planning Department. On March 17th, that ordinance was completed and ready to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. For some reason, Chairman Chadwick delayed putting the ordinance on the agenda until the August 4th meeting. Even as the county is moving towards the cap of 530 licenses, we feel that our request for an opt-out is not the waste of time Chairman Chadwick described when she was quoted in the Trinity Journal. Most people I have spoken with believe that ultimately the county will increase the cap of licenses beyond 530. We want assurance that none of the remaining permits and none of the permits available if the cap is raised will ever be issued in our neighborhoods. We don't consider it a waste of time to secure forever the value of our property and the quality of our life. We're requesting the right to determine for ourselves what our neighborhood should look like. We want to live on the historically residential property we have worked so hard to purchase. Our water is inadequate, as has been mentioned, for commercial agriculture operations. Our private roads are poorly maintained, often single lane with blind turns. They would never be considered adequate for any commercial traffic. Our remote residential neighborhoods are vulnerable to the dangers inherent to the cannabis industry and 30 to 45 minutes away from help. The GPS is not accurate in our area. I have had numerous vehicles in my driveway, including yesterday, mistaking me for my cannabis growing neighbors. These mistakes have been innocent so far, just deliveries to the wrong address. My fear is that the same mistake could be made by people with more sinister motives. It smells like I'm growing 300 pounds of pot in my backyard, because that is essentially what my neighbors are doing. This illegal grow is on one of 3 properties adjacent to me owned by Leon Draper. His tenants have an application for commercial cannabis cultivation pending on a neighboring parcel. This application was accepted because of the delay in the adoption of our opt-out and despite the frequent code violations and crimes committed on these 3 parcels. I request that you please extend this urgency ordinance and make our opt-out permanent as soon as you're able. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any additional public comments? And please state your name for the record.
My name's Chris Parkin, and I live off of Bear Creek Road. I'm not directly on Bear Creek. I have a long driveway that's up on about a quarter mile off of the road, but yet I go up and down Bear Creek all the time, and I'm affected by all the traffic and everything that Sally has mentioned. One of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit today is the water out there. We don't really have a water table. You know, we're kind of dependent on subsurface geographic features that like the fissures in the granitic rock where the water tends to follow, and if someone drills a well above you or adjacent to you and they tap into your fissure, then your surface water dries up. These fissures will go in towards a ravine, and then they'll come to the surface, and then we can tap into it and fill our water tanks. This is the first year that my surface water is dried up, and maybe it's global warming, but maybe it's the 7 illegal grows on Bear Creek that are tapping into this water. The only way I can top off my tank is at night between midnight and about 10 o'clock in the morning, when the trees absorb less water and more water flows into the stream, and it goes into my little hose and tops off my tank, and I'm good to go. Water usage is for a family. You figure a family of, let's say, 4. I don't know that there's a family of 4 out there. I think everybody's mostly couples. But it's about about 200 gallons a day for a couple, and that's laundry and cooking and all of that kind of stuff. When you start pulling water out of the system to water plants, let's say a grow has 400 plants at 5 gallons a day, that's 2,000 gallons taken out of the system that would be available to my stream. And so when all this water is leaving, it leaves my stream void of any water. The other issue is this business brings people into the area that aren't really, I've got 27 seconds, who aren't really tied in to keeping the quality up. Every day I pick up trash. People who live there don't throw trash out because they know that somebody, maybe themselves, will have to pick it up. You throw a can out, you throw a cigarette out, and with this fire season, we really have a really dense forested area that we're living in, and that's all my time.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional public comments?
Good afternoon, Supervisors. John Brower from Junction City, and once again, I think most of the cannabis industry, or many, including myself, are supportive of the idea and concept of opt-out zones. Seem to be working pretty well, mostly, especially since bringing Hayfork back into production and dropping that as an opt-out zone. But it really seems that many of the concerns from that community are best addressed by regulating cannabis in that area instead of essentially banning it and then only having unlicensed grows. The long-term fix is regulation. But that being said, if you are going to move forward with this, there is a precedent of each other opt-out zone that has been adopted has had a grandfathering period to allow existing licensees pending, and those wishing to jump in before the door closes, a chance to get approved for licensure within 60 days, 90 days. I think 120 days was the first opt-out zone. And this had none of that opportunity. In fact, it has the opposite, where it would prohibit the sole licensee in that neighborhood from being able to transfer their license. And the way I read the urgency ordinance, it seems they might not even be able to transfer it to another location outside of that neighborhood in this opt-out zone. And that would be a tragedy, because the licensee in that area has complied with all the regulations. I believe they're violation-free. I know they've tried to be good neighbors. They're certainly not leaving trash on the road. So it seems like this is the opportunity to massage the urgency ordinance in a minor way, which is allowable, and somehow massage that element of non-transferability for the single licensee. And at the very least, allow them to transfer to a location outside of that opt-out zone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional public comments? Please.
Good afternoon. My name is James Cook. I live on 195 First Left Road. I'm sure you remember me from the last meeting. So I'm here basically to address this opt-out zone ordinance, particularly the nomenclature that doesn't allow the transfer of our license. We submitted our applications in 2017, long before this opt-out zone was approved. I currently possess fully approved annual licenses from the county and state. By denying us the transfer of license, you are discriminating against us, as every other licensed farm in the county has the right to transfer. We have invested substantial time and money developing our business and our property. Excuse me. We've gone above and beyond to be compliant with both county and state guidelines. By making us the only farm I'm aware of in the entire county that can't transfer their license, this is a clear definition of a taking. It devalues my business and my property significantly. It's our constitutional right, if we so choose, to be able to sell our business and property at a current market value to the highest bidders. It's what we've worked incredibly hard to do, is to build this successful farm. You know, if it was a bar or a restaurant, you wouldn't sell without the right permits. And it's similar here, in my opinion. All I'm asking for is to be afforded the same rights as every other legal farm in this county. So I would ask that the board please amend this part of the opt-out ordinance to allow us the transfer of our license. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional comments from the room or online?
Speak. Hello, this is Steve Ronehouse, and I want to thank you all very much for being there today and to let you know that this emergency ordinance for the opt-out has been vindicated. Last week I walked Rush Creek and there's many locations where the water has gone underground, and even locations through the Rush Creek estates. So the emergency part is like I said, vindicated. As far as the transfer of permit, that Mr. Cook has expressed his desire to be able to transfer his permit with sale of the property, we strongly object. The permit was issued to Mr. Cook, not the property. He was granted permission to cultivate on his property, even though the opt-out designation would deny any new cultivation. Permits from being issued, Mr. Cook's permit should be allowed to continue in the opt-out as long as he is compliant and resides on property. His permit should be able to be transferred to another qualified parcel if he chooses. Transfer of his permit to any new owner of his parcel would violate the intent of the opt-out to secure a cannabis-free residential neighborhood. The license is to the permittee, not the land, which when sold would be under a different name and owner. Again, and this would violate the intent of the opt-out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes?
We're having problems hearing us, so just to make sure everyone's...
Are you going to call on us, or should we just speak out?
I would say just speak out and we'll handle it.
This is my first time doing this, everybody, so this is brand new. Yes.
Oh, okay. My name is Veronica Kelly. Are we on to the next person? I'm sorry, is Mr. Roadhouse done?
Yes, I believe so. You may proceed.
Yes, I'm done.
Hi, my name is Veronica Kelly Albies, Douglas City. I wanted to speak today and support the opt-out area for the Rush Creek area. I believe that the members of our community throughout Trinity County should have a strong voice in how they live. and that's both sides, growers and non-growers. There are many of us that have been here a long time that put money into the community, that have spent our life savings for our properties, and not having to wake up every day worrying about how to fight for that becomes very difficult from somebody moving in or taking over your property in other ways through nuisances. Marshall Ranch Road all of a sudden has cars dropping off and picking up people from a property just above that's supposed to have only Highway 3 access. So I look forward to the day that the EIR offers some clarity and support for putting appropriate ordinances in place between two groups and maybe find a more balanced way for everybody to live together in this beautiful Trinity County. But I did want to say, keep the opt-out area as you started, allow the EIR time to do its work, but the residents, the majority of the residents there have given you their voice, and I think that's an important part of this whole process. So please keep it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional speakers on the Zoom or phone?
Hi, is it my turn?
It is. Please proceed. And state your name.
Okay, this is Carl Fensel, and I wrote you a letter. I hope you received it and read it, because it's going to be worded a lot better than I'm going to be doing today. But I believe that Trinity County needs to preserve some of its neighborhoods and neighborhood and not be inundated with commercial cannabis grows. We have a commercial cannabis grow in our neighborhood. Would like to see that become back to residential, not commercial cannabis. His license was issued before we even knew there was a possibility, and we would have fought it before. And when he moved in, he told us he was not going to grow, so we didn't see the urgency to fight this. If we had known he was going to grow, we would have started fighting long ago. So please make sure that the opt-out is approved as worded, where he cannot transfer the license with the sale of his property. He denuded his property, clear-cut, bulldozed. He ruined the value of it, not us. He should be able to transfer some. We don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional members of the public on the Zoom or phone that would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Are there any additional comments, questions?
Do you entertain a motion?
I have a couple questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bridget.
But you can go ahead.
You have questions, I have comments, so
Okay.
ask your questions.
I'm going to take this off so people can hear okay. So, first things first, we've had this issue with last name of Draper that seems to cause quite a mess wherever in that area. So I would like an update, or where are we on enforcement on this situation? This has caused quite a hassle for the neighbors, and also making a license holder kind of be thrown into the same kind of group. So, and if I heard correctly, it sounds like he's still growing and it's illegally, because I don't think we've issued a license. So where are we with that situation? I've been hearing about it for quite a while. Secondly, I also heard mention of other illegal grows going on up there. This is an enforcement issue regardless of our program. So is Margaret on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Margaret, do we have any that you're aware of? Any citations or violations that have been issued for illegal grows in this area that's opt-out?
I don't have that information. I looked through the information I did have and I didn't see any. but that doesn't mean there haven't been some that have come through the sheriff's department, but I don't have that information.
Okay. Although I'm supportive of their request for the moratorium, it just seems like I just don't want people to walk away with a false sense of security that this moratorium is going to cure these illegal grow operations. That is an enforcement problem, not a license holder problem. So I'm concerned that we're going to pass this and you're still going to have the same problems, because it sounds like we only have one legit license holder, has been there since 17, probably one of our earlier license holders. Kim, do we have violations on this license holder that you're aware of?
On Mr. Cook's property?
Yeah, right.
No.
No, okay.
Very clean file, very clean site.
Okay. So I'm a little confused what, I get what started this off in terms of this Mr. Draper issue. And that continues, it sounds like, which shouldn't be continuing. So what do we do with this license holder it's not like they just jumped in last year. And Margaret, if you're still there, I'm assuming you are, can you confirm that at the very least, this license holder can transfer his license even to another property outside of this area? Someone brought up the language that they wouldn't be able to do that. I need to confirm that.
That's correct. So they would be eligible to transfer it to another property pursuant to our current regulations regarding transferring.
Okay, and so, and it just seems like there's a little bit misinformation that license holders can transfer their license and or property according to our ordinance. So this is only for 10 months. Hopefully something could be resolved with this license holder. So those are my questions and comments. I would be really interested to know how many complaints have been filed on the illegal grows in the area. I probably am not going to know today, but I would like some feedback on that just for my own education. And that's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Clement? Supervisor Gross?
So I don't want to get too bogged down in the fact that there's one bad actor that's done a lot of bad things. As far as I can, from a planning standpoint, it's not a really great place to have commercial activity of any sort. But with that said, we have always allowed grandfather to transfer. In this urgency ordinance, we do not. But I think the appropriate time to decide that question is in front of the Planning Commission, when people can have their voice. This is part of the ordinance. All we're doing at this point is saying, whoa, nothing happens, nothing changes until this process moves forward. So I would advise that we move forward on this as written. Then we hopefully get this process going quickly, so before next grow season that this item has been resolved one way or the other. Of course, I would be in full support of the to be able to transfer out of into a proper area, and that's been confirmed, so that shouldn't be an issue. But I think at this point, we let this go to its course. We have the planning department write, an opt-out ordinance that either allows the grandfather transfer and maybe have an option for not, and then let the public process take its course. That's what I recommend.
I apologize, Vice Chair, if I can jump in, because I want to make sure I gave the right information.
Please do.
So I just want to clarify regarding how our current ordinance is written for transferring of licenses. It's under 3E. So there are two situations where you can transfer your license. One, you can transfer as part of the sale of your property, or, so you can transfer it to a third party as part of the sale, or you can transfer it to another property that you own or you lease. So it's not as if you can sell it to a third party, you can sell it to, or you can transfer it to your property, another one of your properties. Since there are currently licenses available, this did contemplate selling it to a third party or another property, but I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you, Margaret, that was important to know, or remind everyone.
And Margaret, I also have a technical question. In this urgency ordinance, is there ability to amend, or is there ability to just change typos? Or would we have to start out with a new urgency ordinance if the board chose to amend?
So typos, grammatical errors can always be changed at any time. Any substantive changes can only be changed at one of these noticed hearings, and we're only allowed to have 3 of them, so it would have to be now or in 10 and a half months that it would get modified.
Thank you for the clarification.
Are there any additional questions or comments from the board? I will say that at the last meeting when we discussed this, the main concern was the existing licensee and their ability to transfer that to a new owner or to transfer that out of the opt-out. Seeing that we can amend easily if that is going to help people understand that they are not losing their constitutional rights. I would figure that that would be beneficial. I don't know if there is any other supervisor that is interested in discussing any amendment opportunity or not.
I would like to have clarification from county council that if we keep it as is now, are we violating constitutional law?
So no, the way it's currently written is legally sufficient.
Any additional questions from the board?
No, I mean, you've heard me before the last meeting. I'm in favor of this for the community. We have someone who joined our licensing program very early, and we've not done this before, where we've not been allowed that person to transfer their license in the carve-outs, in the original carve-outs. You know, if there was violations and all these other items, that would be a different story, but I'm not confident it will get remedied in 10 months or less for a variety of reasons. And yet I do want to help this community. So I'm still very confused why this license holder is being held to the issues of these other folks, whether it's the one in particular license, not non-license holder, or these other illegal grows who are going to be left to exist there. I'm missing something. Though I'm not against the moratorium, why are we shutting this one person out for having some flexibility? I mean, maybe they would want to just move and sell, get to another property. It sounds like it might be the smartest, but they have an investment, I assume. So that is my concern. on this license holder.
Supervisor Finley?
Just a follow-up comment to Supervisor Morris. I understand they have an investment in this property, and I really agree with it 100%, and I welcome the farmers. I also have an investment in my property, and it is offset or changed by the county allowing commercial operations where it wasn't necessarily expected when I first moved in. So there's two sides to the story, but I agree with the gentleman. We invited, through our ordinance, invited people in to become farmers and to participate. So I agree with you, this is really tough. What's really going on here, bottom line? Are we denying this gentleman his right, and is my right tonight also, with my investment in the property?
Right, and like I said, I'm in favor of this moratorium. It's this item that bothers me. This is a party that jumped into the system early, because let me remind everybody, prior to this program, illegal grows were out of control, and no one was doing anything about it. In fact, there was mixed messaging going on about it. And so this program did help bring those willing to come into a regulated process and separate the bad actors from the good actors. Doesn't mean that we allow, I don't want to keep mentioning that bad actor's name, but we all know who's caused, quite a problem in this neighborhood, which I sympathize with and what they've been dealing with. But again, illegal grows are still going to be there. And so are we going to slowly eke out the program, and then we're going to back to where we were 5-6 years ago and everything was completely out of control?
Right, and unpermitted housing and unpermitted, it's still going to be there also. How do we get to the point where it kind of works out for everybody? I agree with you.
Right.
I'm not, this is good stuff.
Because, those illegal grows are still going to be there with this moratorium unless something happens.
I will point out that it takes 4 votes to pass this, so we have to all be in agreement. So if that's a hill you're going to die on, then make a motion.
Well, I'm hoping there's some creative solution for this one license holder. And maybe it can get vetted out prior to 10 months.
Well, I will say, no matter which way we vote today, when this comes in front of the Planning Commission, the same group of people are going to make the same arguments on both sides. So it will have public airing out, and the commission will then decide on what they choose to recommend to us.
All right, so.
Well, someone about to speak?
Is this incentive to try and finally fix this problem?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is this incentive to finally try and fix this problem instead of just kicking the can down the road and hoping that everybody complies or everyone doesn't, and we have incredible enforcement, or is it time to kind of set up a plan for the future?
Well, again, you're holding 2 segments of a party hostage here. You want to help the community.
We've been holding the county hostage.
I mean, not you, John, I'm just saying generally. And a license holder who came into our program at a time when things were very out of control. So I would hope, CAO Coons, that we could also, so this community doesn't have to continue more issues, that there is some enforcement on these illegal grows.
We'll meet and ask the sheriff to address this.
Well, after hearing the discussion, I'm going to go ahead and move to amend this motion, or a motion to amend the ordinance with an additional statement or sentence in section 3, paragraph A, that would state, any current residents of Rush Creek Estates who have a valid commercial cannabis license with the county may transfer their license for their property pursuant to county regulations related to the transfer of commercial cannabis licenses. I feel like, and that was the end of the sentence, I feel like that would help with a lot of the cloudiness and confusion. And maybe Margaret, is wording like that appropriate for an amendment?
Margaret, if you'd like, would you like a second before you discuss this?
15 days.
I don't know what she said.
Would you like a second before you discuss this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
There's an important additional matter here, that the current licensee is not in Rush Creek
Tell them to be
Estates.
quiet while we're conducting business.
They are in the Rush Creek opt-out zone.
Thank you.
You might have to read it again.
I'll go ahead and reread it, Margaret. So wording to, the wording that would be added to section 3, paragraph A, any current residents of Rush Creek Estates who have a valid licensed commercial cannabis license with the county may transfer their license for their property pursuant to county regulations related to the transfer of commercial cannabis licenses. There was a concern that if that were the wording, that Rush Creek Estates would not be sufficient in describing that it was Rush Creek Estates opt-out area, if there would have to be clarity added to that. I'd be curious to know.
Would it be just Rush Creek opt-out, not estates? And I'm not sure if you'd want to use the term residents or owners.
Licensee.
You would also want to have a valid state license.
Right.
And in good standing.
Okay, well, it seems like that all still fits within one sentence.
License.
Margaret, your connection is
Lost everybody.
failing or failed.
Oh, am I not?
Oh, you're
Can you
back.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Let me know, put your hand up if you can't hear me, but the way that's written, the current county ordinance requires a state license, so that would be incorporated in. I would agree with the recommendation regarding the description of the opt-out area.
Thank you. Yes, Professor.
Margaret, this is getting a little confusing and intense for an addition to an urgency ordinance during a public, requesting at a public hearing. Are we really allowed to make these kind of changes at this point?
Yes, you are allowed to make substantive changes after a public hearing regarding it. You can't make a substantive change unless it was publicly noticed, which it was done. So
Okay.
amendments can be made at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'll also throw out there a subsequent motion to accept item 2.1 as presented regarding Rush Creek cannabis licensing moratorium.
Did he have a second?
He did not have a second yet.
No, I don't have a second.
Jeremy had a second, was
Yeah, I
Bentley.
second.
Oh, I'm
Jeremy's.
sorry, okay.
So we could discuss it.
I see, got it, sorry.
I'll second John's.
So we have a motion and a subsequent motion on the table. Is there more discussion?
Well,
Supervisor Morris has her light on. Apologize.
No. No, my question was answered, sorry.
I think we should, before we vote on the subsequent, I think we should have the exact language that we're trying to put in here. Please read back to us.
Okay. And you would like to see the addition of the state licensing and good standing specifically added, and you are interested in the definition of residence or owner or licensee, and the Rush Creek Estates would become a Rush Creek opt-out. Would you like me to make a formal?
We just have the, you guys have that?
I do not have all of that, but I will attempt to.
Maybe you should take your mask off, Jeremy, it might be a little
Okay.
easier to hear.
What I have, and then Jeremy can correct me, or
Okay.
Jeremy can just reread it in its
I
entirety.
can reread what I think is appropriate, and then maybe Margaret wants to weigh in and make sure that Supervisor Grove's concerns are remedied in this statement. So, any current parcel owners of Rush Creek opt-out who have a valid state and county cannabis license may transfer their license for their property pursuant to county regulations related to the transfer of commercial cannabis licenses.
Am I able to ask a question about that?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Margaret, after we have this written up, we'll go over it one more time.
I wrote it down so that I can provide it to the clerks, and the way I have it written is all property owners in the Rush Creek opt-out area with a valid state and county commercial cannabis license may transfer their license for their property pursuant to all valid county regulations related to the transfer of commercial cannabis license.
And I believe Supervisor Groves had wanted to add the wording of good standing in relation to the permits. So probably no violations or not expired.
We have a valid license, but you want valid license and good standing. Can you add that in?
Supervisor Groves, do you have any additional requests?
I have no additional comments.
Looking for comments?
So,
Oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
Does this defeat the purpose of even having the urgency ordinance? And does it actually, thank you, but no thank you for the head shake, does it actually, man, thanks. Hold on a second. So does this defeat the purpose of the original urgency ordinance by what you're requesting? And does it actually solve the problem of the bad players that are out there by allowing this gentleman to have what he wants and needs and to continue operating and to possibly bring in another player by selling his property and transferring his license? Am I incorrect?
It's not my understanding that this ordinance is affecting illegal cannabis activity in the area. So,
Which the discussion Judy and I had is pretty much the problem.
But that's a separate problem than this urgency ordinance.
But the urgency ordinance is also trying to take care of that.
Guys, I think we've gotten lost on the original intents
Exactly.
on this. The reality is there's 100 parcels. We have more than one bad player in the area, but the bad players have been playing shell games with being licensed, not licensed. So of the 99, or of the 100 parcels, this does go to a great lengths in those bad players playing the game. It means that there is no gray area. They are not allowed to go forward, which would give great strength to our code enforcement because they've gotten trapped in this shell game that's been being played. So yes, this goes a long ways. The intent of the community is they don't want any cannabis, and that's what their choice was. But again, this goes a great ways to getting to where they want, just not 100%.
With the addition.
With the addition, yes.
The addition, the amendment.
One of the reasons the code enforcement has not been able to do their job is that some of the players are very good at changing ownerships, moving things around, and they keep saying that, oh, they're in the program, they're asking for licenses, and so our code enforcement guys are trained to not jump down the throats of people trying to comply. But these groups of people have learned that, and so now code enforcement can go in and say you're not trying to get a license because you can't get a license.
But you're saying this will fix that?
Even
specifically with this addition that Jeremy added?
Specifically with this addition.
And
yes.
With that addition, at this point, you probably should enter Mr. Cross's name as the person that is allowed to do that, or the parcel number.
That, again, I have a hard time.
I do too.
When we do this thing here, we have a process for this to happen, and it's through the planning commission, where they spend hours discussing and thinking these things out, and we're trying to do this on the fly. Either way we vote today, that will happen again. This is not over with. This is just to give the 12 months. So I guarantee if we allow the transfer, that the Rush Creek group of people will want that stopped when it comes to the commission, and I guarantee the applicant, if he's banned from transferring, will be making a case to the planning commission to allow him to transfer. But that's going to be in an area, in a more workshop environment where things can be better thought out. So my main concern is to not get this whole thing bogged down off of the one license, because I believe what we've done today, what even Jeremy's suggesting, is a big benefit for the community. It's just not everything that they want, and as I represent the community as a whole.
With that being said, Keith, I'd like to withdraw my subsequent. Would you withdraw your second?
I would prefer you to keep it.
Okay.
Let the votes fall to me.
I have a question. So Margaret, are you still there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So if we make any amendment, then this will kick it off for a moratorium for 10 months until it either is finished or completed or needs an extension. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Nothing needs to come back to us?
No, nothing will come back to you unless you want to have another public hearing on it, or if you want to terminate it. Those are typically the only reasons it would come back.
So my other technical question, and how can we secure this person's ability to transfer? I'm going to give them the benefit of doubt, but we don't want this license going to somebody who's caused trouble. And so obviously, maybe this is a technical question for planning department to verify who this license might go to, if it ever goes to anybody. I mean, they may just buy another property. I'm just thinking ahead of the cycle.
So I can't really answer that question question fully because it's going to have a lot of variables. But I will say that when a license is transferred, that individual is transferred for is required to go through the entire process of getting approved. Meaning they will be assessed for whether they have criminal actions that are that would keep them from getting a license, whether they've been cited in prior properties. There are a number of factors that is considered that would hopefully weed out folks that have shown not to be compliant with our county code or state law in the past.
Okay, and then with that said, you just reminded me of something. A new, if they were to sell their property, that new owner and new license holder, as you stated, would have to go through the whole process, which would also include the CE process, where it would go in front of the commission, would it not? If someone wanted to appeal it.
It would go through the appeal process. I'm not sure the CE process.
Well, I meant really the appeal process.
The licensing process,
Right.
whether it was a CE or provisional, it's going to be noticed and can be appealed. Correct?
And that would give the neighbors
Opportunity.
an opportunity, like with any license, to say, oh, wait, we have some issues here.
They could say that, really, yes, but they would, to formally appeal, have to file an appeal and pay the
Right.
fee.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any additional discussion?
Well, I would answer Supervisor Morris' question that we would, to get what you wish, we would have to tighten up our ordinance on who can get a license. So, for example, if you're asking that we put in that not only, the felon requests that we have, but if you've ever violated county code on cannabis, that you're not eligible for a license, or you violated 3 county codes, or whatever it is. We have matured along in this process, and that may be something we can think about if you so were inclined.
I mean, you could go as far as, I won't say the person's name, but they're not eligible.
Don't know if Margaret would like that.
Are there additional questions or discussion from the board before we move on? Seeing none, then if we could please poll the board on the amended motion, please?
No.
Sorry, the subsequent.
motion. The subsequent motion,
I have one quick question.
I was just kidding.
For Margaret again.
Sorry.
You may.
Thank you, Chair. So Margaret, remind me again, if both motions fail, then what?
So Supervisor Groves was correct. We need a 4/5 vote, which means we need unanimous for those that are present today. If both motions fail, then the urgency ordinance would die, and we would not have it anymore.
That's what I thought. All right, thank you for that reminder.
So to be clear, the subsequent motion,
Subsequent motion by Supervisor Finley, seconded by Supervisor Groves, to approve the extension of the urgency ordinance as presented. Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes.
Supervisor Brown?
just put me in a tough spot.
Chair is.
Supervisor Brown?
Yes.
Is that echo?
Were you answering Margaret, or were you voting?
I was just making a comment. I have not voted.
I view that as an affirmative vote.
Supervisor Brown, we need your vote.
That was Margaret that was talking. It was.
Yeah, Margaret He asked, he said Margaret, and Margaret said something, and Jeremy.
I'll go ahead and vote yes.
Thank you. No, we don't vote on the motion that's on top.
We're done.
Yep.
So that concludes today's public hearing. I will be reporting out on closed session momentarily. Otherwise, that completes the meeting. Are we doing that?
I think we are going to go into closed session. I think we wanted to go back in.
Yeah, I have further discussions on this.
Yeah.
So we'll be going back into closed session to continue item number subsequent 1. Subsequent 2.
Subsequent one is the local emergency.
Right.
Right, that's supposed to be.